Hi. Welcome back to our course Echoes of Enlightenment, Baroque Literature. Come along with us today for a study with Baruch de Spinoza.
A study with Baruch Spinoza, 1632 to 1677. With the rise of literacy in the masses accelerating due to the Industrial Revolution, though hard to believe now, freedom of speech wasn't amicable to 17th century administrations. Baroque literature opened eyes of more literate classes, so much so that encouragement to work was surpassed by the will of philosophy. Descartes claims isn't without doubt. It is not that he did so, but that he did so in a manner that others could comprehend, and like a flower blossomed in the minds of others. Encouragement that one could doubt was proven by Descartes, but rulers and kings needed workers and didn't have time for those questioning orders received from the king or whomever gave them. Baruch de Spinoza was 17 when Descartes took his last breath, but his posthumous effect had a great influence on Spinoza. Of Portuguese-Jewish descent and born in the Dutch Republic, Amsterdam is the setting beginning the story of Baruch or Benedictus de Spinoza. On 17th century rationalism and biblical criticism, he is a seminal thinker and some say perhaps the most important of Enlightenment thinkers. Sure, Spinoza became a leading figure in philosophy, but enlightened from Jewish rationalism, stoicism, and other heterodox thinkers then, he was illustrious in the Dutch Golden Age. He couldn't lie about what he knew nor thought, which is perhaps the pitfall of us all, because yelling, "Get out of the way! Here comes a bus," must be said.
Baruch de Spinoza was not as formally educated as one would think to be as important to bring up today if not for him being so enlightened. In the Amsterdam Talmud Torah congregation, Spinoza attended the Keter Torah Yeshiva under Saul Levi Mortira, a traditional senior rabbi. He would drop out before advanced study in the Torah for work in his family's importing business. In 1656, Spinoza dedicated himself to philosophy, enlightened by Descartes and optics. Being born a Portuguese Sephardic Jew in Amsterdam, surely Hebrew, Portuguese and Dutch were of the languages he communicated in, but he wrote in Latin, having learned it in his youth. Franciscus van den Enden, who was previously a Jesuit, taught Spinoza Latin and may have introduced him to philosophy and other Baroque literature like that of Descartes. Boarding under van den Enden, Spinoza changed his first name Baruch to the Latin version of Benedictus and established his own school of thought. Under van den Enden, Spinoza would encounter remonstrants, some collegians with more rational tendencies and Mennonites whose liberal faction led to more radical thought. The printing press and the Protestant Reformation enlightened the masses to define their own perceptions, which began with religious thought, where all around Europe, from coffee houses to marketplaces, people would pontificate their positions. From Spinoza, a circle of unorthodox thinkers would emerge, referred to as the Spinoza Circle. Sure, one or two may be a coincidence, but several, and certainly a train of thought where whatever it was that was said amongst them influenced more than most, and others to boot.
Claiming a kingdom or religion came with beneficial behavior, of which speech was a form of behavior. A subject is a step up from a slave and totally different from a citizen, where slaves to the lord or subjects a king. Outside of dogma and law, neither administration preferred free speech. How could what one scribbles on a piece of paper amount to 1600 years of Bible teachings? What makes one of the masses superior to what's been preached for hundreds of years, and what makes one think so highly of himself that he thinks that somehow what he has to say will make any sort of difference? Being Jewish is not only perceived to be stricter, but it is so because jurisdiction is measured by breadth and also time. Holding court for a longer duration means more laws will be passed and more one under another may not say, but writing is another thing, and also, perhaps, why Spinoza wrote in Latin. Not that it was or wasn't, but Spinoza insisted authorship of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible was not Mosaic, which broke with Jewish dogma and was labeled a heretic. His Jewish congregation in Amsterdam, where he studied law and theology, Talmud and Torah, July 27 of 1656, excommunicated him under a writ of Turim at the age of 23. He'd been studying Latin under van den Enden, though the reason for his expulsion is not noted. Though studying under a Jesuit, writing in Latin, excommunicated from his religious community and buried in Nieuwe Kerk, The Hague, at a Protestant church, one would think he had converted to Christianity, as his spirit of protest was expressed in his Baroque literature.
Spinoza moved to Ravensburg in the Netherlands after 1660, where he started what many call his masterpiece, the Ethics and Descartes, Principles of Philosophy. He completed and published Descartes, Principles of Philosophy, upon a brief return to Amsterdam in 1663. That same year, Spinoza would move to Voorburg, the oldest city in the Netherlands, where he worked on the ethics but wrote and published theological political treatise defending secular and constitutional government in support of the then Grand Pensionary of Holland, Johan de Witt. It is good to support government unless against William of Orange, which Spinoza found out in 1673, as his treatise was condemned by the Reformed Church's synod and in the next year formally banned. By then, in 1670, he had moved to The Hague, where his work on the ethics continued but wasn't completed after a visit from Leibniz in 1676.
Though disliked by those more orthodox, even Henry Oldenburg was among those who were amongst his visitors. He was a rationalist, though his thinking was unorthodox, but what is thought other than the opposition? What we sense, where thought is our sixth sense. Being rational, he felt ideas and reality correspond to each other, just as do mathematics of the world. Writing beginning with Cartesian doubt, he started his investigations with self-evident truths, where, if everyone thinks this, why would he too?
That's all the information we have for you this session. We will see you back at 9:11 on Monday the 12th of June for a study with Thomas Hobbes. Thank you for your time and consideration.